Hey guys, welcome back to Southern Pride Corner. We're going to go into series number 3 and got some pretty good information for you. Started off by a gentleman on YouTube by the name of Stony. Sent me a PM asking about the 1972 Chevrolet pickup truck. So I went in and did a little bit of searching, and I'll read to you what I found, a part of it. The rest of it, if you want more information on it, I've got an entire scale that breaks down all the different stuff. If you're really interested in that, you know, shoot me a PM, let me know. I'll email it out to you just as quick as I can. So let's get this going, because I got a feeling it might be just a little bit of a long video this time. So we'll start off with the 1972 Chevy C10. It was introduced in the truck line for Chevrolet in '72. Was a Chevy Love, which stood for Light Utility Vehicle, a mini pickup derived from Isuzu Motors in Japan. Outward appearance on the '72 Chevrolet trucks were the same as the previous year, minus the black finished grille surround. Again, the Custom Deluxe, the Cheyenne, and the Cheyennes were available, and which came with black Penta coated fabric, antique medium tan Penta coated fabric, or antique light cover coated fabric. C10 or K10 models could be equipped with either a 115-inch or a 127-inch wheelbase, with a 6.5 foot or 8 foot cargo box, available in fleet side or step side models. The Chevrolet Suburban was based on a 127-inch wheelbase with 2 doors on the passenger side and 1 on the driver's side, and either had a tailgate or a double rear doors, or commonly known as barn doors. The standard equipment on these were a 6-cylinder engine, side terminal battery, dual brake, master cylinder, backup lights, panoramic rear window, non-glare inside mirror, padded dash, ashtray, seat belts with retractors, push button seat belt buckles, 2-speed electric washer, wipers, safety glass painted front bumper, plus more. Front disc brakes were made standard in light duty trucks. 1972 Chevy pickups, this is kind of the way they come out. Now I've got a whole probably 8-9 other pages here that just rambles on about the different the model numbers, the body styles, number of shipping, body type, so on and so forth, prices. You know, if you're interested in that and you really want the information, you know, shoot me a PM. I'll get that out to you just as quick as I can. Now let's move on to some more cars and trucks. And we're going to start off with my most favorite car in the whole world. It's a 1959 Cadillac. Yeah, the one with the big old fins on the back. Yes, sir, yes, sir. You know, they called it a 62 series. That's the style it was. It was designed by a gentleman called Harley Earl. It was the last year that he designed these cars. In the 1950s, the car industry was growing fast. The big car makers launched a new version of a car every year because people wanted to drive the latest models. The Series 62 was one of Cadillac's most famous models from the 1950s. It began with the rounded hood and fenders, and over the years, tail fins and more chrome detail were added. The Series 62 was very advanced in transmission. It was fully automatic, meaning the driver did not need to change gears while driving. The Cadillac Series 62 was huge. It was almost as wide as a single lane road. The headlights turn on automatically at dusk. Now that's cool. And it's a pretty cool car. You know, I like the fins. I like them in the convertible, hardtop. But I think the convertible is my favorite. And then I come across this other car. It's called a Mercury Montclair. I'd never heard of one. So I figured I'd give a little information out there about it. Maybe some of you know about it, maybe you don't. So here we go. The Mercury Montclair is one of Ford's most expensive brands. Mercury cars have always been based on ordinary Ford models. The Mercury Montclair was long and sleek, and it was styled to ride low and making it look like a sports car, but it was not a fast car. The Montclair came with an engine called the Y-Block. The engine was shaped like the letter Y. This is how it got its name. The air vents on the side of the car were not just for decoration, they also helped to defrost the back window. Isn't that cool? The Montclair had bigger bumpers than most similar cars, which gave its nose extra protection, and that's cool. Chrysler turbine cars were... Oh, let me stop there and back up for a second. I get on G Plus a lot on Friday and Saturday nights and visit with a bunch of guys, and there's a gentleman out there, he goes by the name of Spike. I was in talking to him a week ago, I think it was, and he brought up these Chrysler turbine engine cars. I had never heard about it, never even thought about anything like that. He told me I needed to check it out and put it in here, and you all did enjoy it, so here we go. And I got a lot of information on this puppy. Okay, we're going to start off with the engine compartment of a Chrysler 1963 turbine car. The fourth generation Chrysler turbine engine ran at up to 44,500 revolutions per minute, according to the owner's manual. It could operate using diesel fuel, unleaded gasoline, kerosene, JP4 jet fuel, and even vegetable oil. The engine would run on virtually anything with combustible properties, and the President of Mexico tested this theory by running one of the first cars successfully on tequila. Sorry about my dogs. No air fuel adjustments were required to switch from one fuel type to another, and only evidence of which fuel was used was the odor of the exhaust. The engine had just 1/5 of the moving parts of a traditional piston-based internal combustion engine. The turbine spun on simple sleeve bearings for vibration-free running. Its simplicity offered the potential for long life, and because no combustion contaminants enter engine oil, no oil changes were considered necessary. That's a money saver. The 1963 turbine's engine generated 130 brake horsepower, and in an instant 425 pound-feet of torque at a stall speed, making it good for 0 to 60 in 12 seconds at an ambient temperature of 85 degrees. It would sprint quicker if the air was cooler and denser. The lack of many moving parts and the lack of liquid coolant eased maintenance, while the exhaust did not contain carbon monoxide, unburned carbon, or raw hydrocarbons. So, nevertheless, the turbine generated nitrogen oxide, and the challenge of limiting them proved an ongoing problem throughout development. The power turbine was connected without a torque converter. It was through a gear reduction unit to an only modified torque flight automatic transmission. Whew. The flow of the combustion gases between the gas generator and the free power turbine provided the same functionality as a torque converter, but without using a conventional liquid medium. Oh, excuse me. Twin rotating recuperators transferred exhaust heat to the inlet air, greatly improving fuel economy. Varying stator blades prevented excessive top-end speeds and provided engine braking on deceleration. Throttle lag and exhaust gas temperature at idle plagued early models. The Chrysler was able to remedy or mitigate these to some degree. Acceleration lag, however, remained a problem, and fuel consumption was excessive. Acceleration was outstanding, provided the turbine was spun up by applying power. Prior to releasing the brakes, otherwise, it was mediocre. The turbine car also featured a fully stainless steel exhaust system, the exits of which were flat in a cross section. This was intended to spread the exhaust gases thinly and thus cool them further in order to allow the vehicle to stand in traffic without risking damage of following traffic. The combustor or burner was somewhat primitive by the standards of modern turbojet engines. A single reverse flow canister featuring a more or less standard spark plug for ignition was employed. Had the engine been further developed, annular combustion chambers along with the second power turbine might have improved power and economy even more. The transmission had an idle instead of neutral. The turbine car had some operational and aesthetic drawbacks. The car sounded like a giant vacuum cleaner, which was unexpected to consumers who were more familiar with the sound of a large American V8. Yeah, that would sound really weird to pull up next to. That said, some observers admired the sound. High altitudes also caused problems for the combined starter generator. Additionally, failing to follow the correct startup procedure would cause the engine to stall. Some consumers thought they could warm the engine up by similar to the way they did with the gasoline engine. They would press the accelerator pedal to the floor before the engine had reached proper temperature. Instead of warming the engine, the excess fuel slowed the turbine down and resulted in the opposite of the desired effect. Doing this, however, did not do any permanent damage to the engine. In fact, it was possible to apply full throttle immediately after starting the engine without much fear of excessive wear. The engines were remarkably durable. Considering how fragile turbine engines are when compared to internal combustion piston engines, troubles were remarkably few for such a bold experiment. It is not known how many testers made the mistake of using the leaded pump gas of the era. The tetrathiol lead would leave debilitating deposits within the engine. It was the one flammable liquid Chrysler recommended not to be used. It was also by far the easiest fuel to obtain. Even so, more than 1 million test miles were accumulated by the 50 cars given to the public, and operational downtime stood at only 4%. Chrysler turbine car at the 1964 New York World's Fair. The bodies and interiors were crafted by Ghia in Italy. The mostly completed bodies were shipped to Chrysler's Greenfield Avenue Turbine Research Center in Detroit for the final assembly. Outsourcing this step may have saved some money for Chrysler, but between the expensive Ghia bodies and the cost of the engine, each car may have cost as much as $50,000 to build. This would be over $350,000 in 2012, and a total of 50 production turbine cars were built between October 1963 and October 1964, plus 5 prototypes, 3 of which differed in roof paint schemes. And each body was finished and shipped to Detroit. Chrysler employees installed the gas turbine torque flight transmissions and electrical components to prepare the car for use by the 203 motorists, 23 of them women, who were chosen to test them throughout the country. The turbine car was a 2-door hardtop coupe with 4 individual bucket seats, power steering, power brakes, and power windows. Its most prominent design features were 2 large horizontal taillights, heavy and nozzles backup lights mounted inside a very heavy chrome sculpted bumper. Up front, the single headlamps were mounted in chrome nacelles with the turbine styling theme, creating a striking appearance. These themes were carried through to the center console and the hubcaps. Even the tires were specially made with small turbine vanes molded into the white sidewalls. It was finished in a reddish-brown Frostfire metallic paint, later renamed Turbine Bronze, and made available on production automobiles. The roofs were covered in the black vinyl, and the interior featured bronze-colored English calfskin leather upholstery with push-cut pile bronze-colored carpet. The front suspension was upper and lower wishbones with coil springs and shock absorbers. The dashboards were lit using electroluminescent panels in the gauge pods and on a call-out strip across the dash. The system did not use bulbs. Instead, an inverter and transformer raised the battery voltage to 100 volts AC and passed that high voltage through special plastic layers, causing the gauges to glow with a blue-green light. Instead of a water temp gauge, the Chrysler turbine had a turbine inlet temp gauge with numbers 500, 1000, 1500, and 2000 degrees Fahrenheit. The car itself was designed in the Chrysler studios under the direction of Elwood Ingle, who had worked for the motor company before his move to Chrysler. The designer created it with the actual look of the car was Charles Mashigan, who designed a 2-seat show car called the Typhoon, which was displayed in the 1964 World's Fair in New York City. Ingle used many older Ford styling themes. The rear taillight bumper assembly was copied directly from the revisions from a 1958 Ford styling study called the LA Galaxy. He used none of the themes associated with the 1964 Imperial, as Engel incorporated many of the design themes from the 1961 Thunderbird, and because the car was a four-seater of similar size and appointment, many enthusiasts called the Ghia turbine the Engelbird. Suspension did not follow Chrysler's ubiquitous torsion bar system, but rather featured contemporary designs using independent front suspension with the coil spring at each wheel. The rear suspension was more typical of Chrysler, with leaf springs and direct-acting shock absorbers. After Chrysler finished the user program and other public displays of the cars, 46 of them were destroyed. Chrysler announced that this was necessary to avoid a stiff tariff, but that was only part of the story. The destruction of the cars was in line with the automobile industry's practice of not selling non-production or prototype cars to the public. This practice was later used by General Motors with its EV1. Of the remaining 9 cars, 6 had the engines deactivated, and then they were donated to museums around the country. Chrysler retained 3 operational turbine cars for the historical reasons. 2 of the 3 are now owned by the WPC Museum, are in running condition, and the archives of the museum. The last turbine car that is functional, owned by the Museum of Transportation in St. Louis, was photographed by Mopar magazine and appears at car shows around the United States from time to time. One turbine car is on display at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan, and it will be part of the exhibition Driving America opening in early 2012. Only 2 Chrysler cars are in the hands of private collectors. One was purchased by a private automobile collector, Frank Kleps of Terre Haute, Indiana, and is functional. Kleps' turbine car was originally donated to the former Hera Museum in Nevada. The second one is owned by comedian and television host Jay Leno, go figure that, who purchased one of the 3 Chrysler turbine cars which had been originally retained by Chrysler. Leno wrote that most were destroyed by Chrysler for tax and liability reasons, which is a shame, because to this day, everyone who rides in the turbine says, "Whoa, this feels like the future." You turn the key and there's a big whoosh and a complete absence of vibration. I think it's the most collectible American car. It was so different. Most of all, the Chrysler turbine is a reminder that all the cool stuff used to be made in the USA. I hope it will be again. Chrysler's turbine engine program did not die completely. With the destruction of the Ghia cars, completely with the destruction of the Ghia cars, a new coupe body, which was to become the 1966 Dodge Charger, was considered for a new generation turbine engine. Nevertheless, the Chrysler went on to develop a 6th generation gas turbine engine, which did meet nitrogen oxide regulations, and installed it in a 1966 Dodge Coronet, though it was never introduced to the public. A smaller, lighter 7th generation engine was produced in the early 1970s when the company received a grant from the United States. Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, for further development and special body turbine Chrysler LeBaron was built in 1977 as a prelude to a production run. By then, the company was in dire financial straits and needed U.S. government loan guarantees to avoid bankruptcy. A condition of that deal was that gas turbine mass production be abandoned because it was too risky. For an auto company of Chrysler's size, a Chrysler turbine car painted white with blue racing stripes featured in 1964 film The Lively Set. The car loaned to the producers by Chrysler was one of the test mules and was returned to Chrysler after production. It was among the cars scrapped while Chrysler's work with the turbine engines never paid off in the retail automobile sector. The experiments proved fruitful with the incorporation of a Honeywell AGT 1500 into a slightly different product, the M1 Abrams main battle tank developed in the late 1970s by Chrysler Defense, which was later sold to General Dynamics. So now we're going to move on to the question section for Southern Pride's Corner. I got a question from a gentleman named Benny McAtack out of Australia about the extra parts that comes in some of the kits. So I figured who better to try and get this information from other than Revell. So I sent an email out to Revell asking them, about it, and this is the answer I received. Charles, when Revell kits have extra parts not mentioned on the plans, it means that other versions of the model have been or will be produced, and the parts are most likely from these alternate versions. They are not needed to complete the version you have, so they are not noted or shown. So basically, they're free parts, and you can use them to build your kit or add them to something else. So I hope that helps, Benny Mac. If it doesn't, let me know and I'll try to find something else. So let's move on to the tip corner. How about those old DVDs and CDs you have laying around the house that are scratched, mucked up, you don't like them, if you're going to throw them away? If you was to use those, you can mix your epoxies on them. You could use them to cut stuff on. You can even use them to mix paint on. You're going to throw them away anyways, so you might as well use them for what you can use them, and then you can pitch them. Sounds like a good idea to me. So, in getting ready to close this, I have to say that we're going to keep going with some of these, more of these cars, information on Southern Pride Corner, and we're going to check out some more model companies and answer any questions that's sent to me. If you have any, it doesn't even have to be a question. You can send me an idea of, it'd be interesting to find out about this car, or pretty much anything. Just let me know what you want to know, and I'll go look for it, see if I can find it. If I can, I'll tell you. But, well, son, I think it's time for me to step on out of here. This is going to be a long one to put together, so y'all have a great day now.